Anyway, so I was living in New York. I lived in New York for 28 years. One day, my friend and roommate, Blake, said, I'm going to move to LA. You should move too. And I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I think I am. I'm ready for a change. I feel like I'm in a rut. And I'm going to go to LA. And he said to me, you're going to be so glad that you were able to have this time with your mom. Because when I moved to LA, she didn't need me to take care of her. And by God, he was right. He was so right. And I've told him many times, you were so right. Thank you so much. Because if I'd have moved back just when she needed me, then it would have been a whole different thing. But we had several years where we got to live together as independent adults. You know, let me see. I moved back 12 years ago. So she was 87 because it was before her birthday. Here's the thing with my mom. By the way, I forgot to tell this part. I got to tell this part. Mom lied like a rug about her age. Always. When she moved here, she was in her 20s. What was it? I think she moved here in 1950. So she was like 26, 27. I think she was 26. It was early in the year. Anyway. But she looked about 16. She always looked way younger than she was. And she would just tell everybody that was her. I didn't learn her real age until I was well into my adulthood. She took 10 years off her age. So she said she was born in 1933. But she got away with it because she looked fantastic. When she was 80, she looked barely 60. Gorgeous skin, incredible skin. Also, she had me when she was 41. So I always said to her, the only way she'd get away with this shit about lying about her age was because she did not have a daughter in her 60s standing around when she was trying to pretend that she herself was in her 60s. So if she'd have married Monsieur Moosebach and had kids in her 20s, as was normal at the time, she would not have been able to get away with it. My father did not know her real age. I never saw my birth certificate when I was a child because it had her age on it. It had the mother's birth date on it. So whenever I needed a birth certificate, I always used my baptismal certificate because you could use that just as well. I imagine you can't now, but you could then. And so this way she was able to hide her age forever. When it was time, when she was 65 and could collect Social Security, she went into the Social Security office with just this armload of papers and said, okay, in this one I lied about my age. 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 She was showing all of her, any document. In this one I lied about my age. She said the woman was howling with laughter. And she said, but this. And I think it was the passport that she had to when she came to the United States in the first place. This has my real age on it. She was able to get her Social Security, which she then had automatically deposited into a separate bank account that my father did not know about. Then, when my parents were buying a new car, they went to buy the new car, and the salesman said, okay, so how about financing? And to my father's great surprise, my mother said, no, we're paying in cash. And that was when he found out that she'd been collecting Social Security all along. My mother was fucking serious about not telling anybody her age. Of course, when she got older, when she hit like 90 and you go to the doctor a lot, you're constantly having to give everybody your birth date as identification. When you get your medication, when you walk into a doctor's office, they say, what's your date of birth? 7/7/23. So she kind of got over people knowing her age because she was always like, I'm not going to tell anybody my age until I'm 100. And she always swore she was going to live to 100. She did not live to 100. She lived to 94, which was, I believe, plenty. Because the last couple years were nothing really to write home about. Though they were not terrible, they definitely could have been worse. But around the time she hit 90, she started saying, I'm going to live to be 150. And I was like, you will not. I will kill you long before then. This was, of course, a joke, but no, nobody wanted that shit. So when my mom was 90, she suddenly had like several mini strokes. One day I called her on the phone and she wasn't making any sense. And I called her doctor and they said take her to the hospital right away. And it turned out she had several mini strokes. And that was sort of like the start of where things started to go downhill. And but I mean, she didn't have any at all, no physical problem at all from that. But mentally, she did start to not be at her finest, and she did end up with dementia. But not, I mean, in no comparison to how much a lot of my friends have dealt with in terms of their parents having dementia. It was horrible, but it could have been so much worse. And then one day, October 21st, actually it was October 20th or so, it was like a day and a half. She suddenly got very, very bad, like a day and a half before she died. And all of a sudden she couldn't really talk, and I had to help her up the stairs, and it took 10 minutes to get her downstairs into bed. And yeah, it was really bad. So yeah, it was about, I'd called, we had home health care, I called them up, and then she died. It was basically a day and a half where things were really bad, and then she died. And I thank God every day that she did not continue on in that condition, because it would have been terrible and she would have hated it. And I thank God every day she was not around for COVID, because boy, would she have hated that. She would have hated it so much, because she was so social and she loved going out and doing stuff at night. She would come along with me on my dog walks. She would say hello to the dogs. She would, if it was an easy dog to walk, she'd walk with me. She had a walking group from the church that they would go on walks together. After she died, they sent me a picture of her from like, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks before she died, happily walking with somebody. So I mean, she had good quality of life up until right before the end. And I miss her a lot, but like I said, I would not wanted her to continue on like that. So there it is, the story of my mother, Gladys Lalonde Zuckert, who was an absolute original. They don't make them like her anymore, that's for sure. I don't know how many parts this turned out to be. You know, because all I've said at the beginning of this is part 1 million. But yeah, that's everything that came to my mind about my mom, whom I miss every day. And happy birthday, happy 100th birthday, and happy 65th anniversary to her and my dad in heaven, where they are, no doubt, having a big fight about something. And then acting together.